Hello, and you are listening to The Professional Artist on 1077 United Public Radio. And I am live with my guest, Paul Vincenti, and his URL is paulvincentiart.com. Hey, Paul, how's it going?
I'm doing well, very well. How are you?
Good. It's been so many years since I've talked to you.
It certainly has.
Paul is a fantastic painter. So definitely go and check out his art at paulvincentiart.com, paulvincentiart.com. And he works primarily in oil paint with a lot of figurative art. And why don't you tell everybody what you do?
Well, I do a variety of things, but mostly I'm primarily an oil painter. I kind of split my time between doing paintings out of my garden, photographs that I've taken out there. I'll see the light is really nice, and I'll go out there and shoot some shots. And then I'll do a nice botanical. So I do a lot of botanicals, and that's for the mainstream art shows and stuff like that. And then when I'm doing the sci-fi fantasy conventions, I do a whole line of basically Greco-Roman fantasy and a few other motifs. I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, so I'll do stuff that, this dragons and wizards and things like that sometimes too. Yeah.
And what totally blew my mind is all right, first of all, I've always been drawn to your Greco-Roman fantasy and your figurative work and everything because I do a lot of figurative work. And what totally blew my mind is just before we went live, is you told me you actually never went to school for art, that you're totally self-trained. I never knew that about you, and I totally thought you were traditionally trained and went to art school. And so that's a
compliment. That's nice to hear.
I completely thought you went to art school for art, and that's probably pretty important for people that wonder if you can be completely successful and self-taught. So yes, you could apparently be completely awesome, amazing painter and be self-taught, because you're proof of that.
Well, thank you very, very much. You're no slouch yourself, of course, so your listeners already know that.
Well, I went to art school too, so I am traditionally trained. But your figures are just fantastic, and your oil paintings are fantastic.
Thank you.
So, and you said you're partially retired now, so just
pandemic forced my hand.
Yeah.
I got so used to sitting on my butt, I kind of liked it. Art shows are tough. Art shows are tough, like we were saying before the show. Art shows are a lot of work. They're not for the faint of heart. You got to be ready to do them, but they are rewarding though, and not just financially. They're rewarding spiritually. They're really great, and it's so great to interface with other artists, especially before and after the show and all that. So doing art shows is I recommend it. It's just I'm 66 years old, so I'm not saying I won't do any more shows, but I just I've enjoyed the hiatus, and I stopped working. I had to work a little bit after 2008. I had built up a pretty decent nest egg, but the art shows weren't doing so hot back in say 2012, 13, 14. Those 3 years right there were all kind of rough for everybody down here at the shows. There was exceptions, of course, but that kind of forced me into having to look for a regular job. So I didn't know what to do. And a friend of mine named Ernie, really good artist, said, "Hey, man, come work out at Universal and draw caricatures. Man, my boss would love you." And I'm like, I don't know how to draw caricatures. You guys are awesome. And but it's not in my wheelhouse. I'm a painter. I'm not really a drawer. And he's like, you'll be fine. So I went and got an interview, and I got hired literally right on the spot before I even drew one line, because the guy had gone to my website and said, "Yeah, you'll be fine. I can train you." So I did it. I said, "Well, you give me this job. I've got 5 years left on my mortgage, just under." I said, "You give me this job, I promise you, I will work for you for 5 years, and I will do my best to be one of your best employees." And I think I lived up to that fact. I did work out there a little over 5 years. I never was a good caricature artist, I don't think, not compared to the guys that were good, but I was good enough for the park. And we had to draw. It was interesting. You had to draw and no sketching no erasing.
Oh my goodness.
And then if you colored it in, you used an airbrush. Luckily, I've been using an airbrush since I was in 9th grade. So I already had the airbrush sort of figured out, but not to the level of by the time I left there. Yeah, I've worked with some of the most fantastic airbrushers. There's this one guy named Blake Souffrant. He is just probably the best freehand airbrusher in the world. I mean, and all the guys that work there agree. He's like a magician with that airbrush. So when you've got that standard to get up to, I learned how to use my airbrush very well, and I'm now teaching airbrush. So yeah, but you have to do what you have to do in the art field.
I mean, you were pretty nervous on your first couple ones, like, oh, am I going to screw this up?
For the first 2 months, I was a nervous wreck. You could ask my wife. I would fall asleep dreaming about all the little rules that I had to. You make sure you taper your lines, and your line weight's important, and this, that, and the other, and you got a person there sitting there, and they want it to look like them, and but they want it funny, and it's I think the real reason, and I'm not even kidding about this, I think the real reason I was never that good at airbrush, at caricature, is because all the guys I know it who are really good at it didn't like people. They just didn't like people, and they were happy to just bust them on the drawings, that nose, oh yeah, I'm making, and they'd go for it. And I always was too shy to do that. I just didn't have that I don't want to say a mean streak, but just a certain, like, I'm not afraid of, I don't care what you think kind of attitude, whereas I still kind of cared. And so I think that held me back as far as really being able to do true caricature. I did kind of
don't want to offend them. Like, I don't want to be
kind of a cutesy, cartoonish portrait, basically. But it didn't matter. But I was selling just as good as they were. So yeah, because
did they train you? Did they actually train you ahead of time, or did they just kind of like?
I got trained for 2.5 days, and then I went out there, threw me to the wolves, because they said the real training happens out there, which is true. And you get some rejects and stuff at first, but after a while, I mean, I didn't get a lot of rejections. I got about the standard amount, which is maybe 1 out of 40. 1 out of 50. Okay. So not too many. Most people were usually, most people were just happy with whatever. And some people are they're the same way. They don't want to offend the artist. So even if they didn't like it, they're not going to say anything. So kind of worked both ways that way. But it was a real training ground. And if anybody was looking to get better at drawing and get better at, coloring things and learning how to be fast, working at a caricature booth like that, it's just the best training. It's the best. So I said I didn't go to school, but that was kind of a school out there. And what happened as a result was my oil paintings that I used to take, usually my averages were between 20 and 40 hours per painting. Mm-hmm. They're kind of, there's some detail and whatnot there. Now, 10 hours is a long time for me to paint. I'm usually knocking out a painting 4 hours, 6 hours in oil painting. And, when I teach my classes, I need to be able to teach them to do a class in 3 hours in oil painting. And that's a pretty quick run for a beginner. But so the standard I get is if I can't paint it in 15 minutes, it's too hard to teach them. So the ones that I showed you just a second ago, that was a 15-minute painting.
Here, hold them up again for anyone watching on YouTube. If you want to tune into the YouTube, it's YouTube/Echochernik, ECHOCHERNIK. And you can see.
That's 15 minutes. That's 15 minutes. That's boom, boom, boom. I mean, I'll paint that sky in the background. That's probably a minute or two. Because you already have it planned out, you know what you're doing. Now that's not, of course, that's not including the prep, getting the prep of the
that's what you teach in your class. Some of those are the students' pieces.
Teach your class. Like this was probably a more complicated one to teach, but but still pretty simple. It's just the edge of a house. You draw a house when you're kids in elementary school, and just a little cow. The place where they have a little problem is the reflection part. But some of them get it, though. Some of them get it. So just simple things like that to try to keep people, this is another simple one. It's a sailboat, not just an ocean thing. So it's kind of, keep it simple to where but they enjoy it. And I love teaching. I think it's fantastic. Oh, bless you.
Thank you.
Oh, by the way, I want to express my condolences to people who are expecting me to look like the picture that was my super old. That must be a 20-year-old photograph of me. My picture that we put on the website there, because I don't have a new one that looks very good. I'm suffering from Bell's palsy on this side.
I didn't even notice.
And it's about 50%, 60% better. It's been about 2 years.
I can't even tell.
I was really, at first I was really, but like I can't really open this eye. Or I can't really lift that eyebrow. I can't really lift the other one. So
I can't even tell. That must have been scary.
Well, but yeah, it's gotten better. The best part is when you first have it, you can't close your eye. And I
weird.
closed my eye for 6 months, so you have to kind of do something at night. Or they want you to tape your eyes shut, but I couldn't do that. So I had to wear this little foam patch thing, had some foam around the inside, and then I'd tape that down and I'd wet it. I'd soak the foam. So I'd have this humid little eye patch on me. It's plastic and foam, and it would seal in because they don't want your eyes to dry out because it damage your eyes. But fortunately, got no eye damage from it, which, that's our bread and butter there, the eyes and the hands. So I was glad to not have any, permanent damage, because some people do get it. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah. You can't have that. You can't have your eye damaged. That would be really bad. So.
No, yes. But I, but like I said, I don't look quite as young as I did in that picture that I said that Lazarus picked out from the.
Well, none of us do. People come into my gallery and they're like,
it's my fault. I didn't update it, so that's my fault.
Oh, people come to my gallery and they're like, "Oh, is that you?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, like 20 years ago." And
20 years ago, but I looked good in that picture, so I'm not changing it.
That's fine. So, yeah, it's amazing how doing life drawings really speeds you up doing your actual work. Because it speeds your hand-eye coordination. So I always tell people that they should do like. Hey, Tad, how you doing?
What's going on? Right on, man. Nice job on your garage there. He built himself, I believe. He got himself a backhoe from, I don't know, Temu or somewhere, or Harbor Freight. I don't know. He got a little backhoe, a little mini one, and did all this work. He did a fine job. It looks good. I know he's not satisfied because I don't think it was quite wide enough to fit both his cars, but he did a beautiful job, I thought. So.
Yeah, Tim in the chat saying hi to us, another artist. Yeah. So we got all kinds of friends popping in to say hi today. So
nice.
So hi everyone.
Howdy.
All kinds of people popping in.
Howdy, Johnny. Yeah. But yeah, I sent a little email out to my students. I know that a few of them chimed in. One of them, for your beginning or your aspiring artists out there, one of them asked me. He said, I'm going to watch the class. Do you teach drawing? And I do not teach drawing. And he said, because they really need a drawing instructor out there. And I'm like, drawing is that's a wide open range of things to teach, is drawing. So, but I'm thinking about it because they don't have one, and I think that might be a really good class to teach. Because but doesn't mean you have to be able to draw to be an artist, especially if you're doing 3D things and stuff. But it is a good foundation, for painters and all that to be able to draw. Should be able to draw. But drawing is basically simply just, in my opinion, it's just shapes. It's just different shapes, and then you've got other things that come along the way with shading and perspective and all that. But to get a foothold on it. Now, have you ever taught, Echo?
Oh yeah, I've taught. I'm the coordinating judge for the Illustrators of the Future, and so I teach the a workshop down there every year in April, which is fantastic. Which is how it led me to actually doing this podcast. And then I actually taught at Pratt for a short time, and I taught in Westchester community college for a short time too, for well, a couple years. That was fun. So I should teach again. Teaching is fun. I like teaching.
Oh, it is great. The students are wonderful. I'm mostly teaching old ladies.
Oh, that's okay too. Old ladies are fun.
They're retirees. They want to do something. They've always wanted to try painting or whatever. And then I teach that, and I seem to teach a lot of college students as well, because they want to, you know, do something outside of the art classes they get there, or they're not doing an art major, but they want to do something. A lot of them seem to be very interested in airbrush. Fantastic tool. And I enjoy teaching that class. But when I first started, they wanted, like my other painting class, they want you to walk out with a finished painting. And I said, well, airbrush now, that requires some knowledge up front. It's not like a pencil. People draw or write, and a paintbrush, people have painted their houses or painted little things, you know, stuff that have any art interest. You know, they've probably messed with it. A paintbrush is pretty straightforward. Put it in the paint, put it on the canvas. Whereas an airbrush, not so much. An airbrush is a more complicated tool than that.
Yeah.
So they had me teach an airbrush class, and it was not, people were intimidated. I only got a couple of signups for a class that can hold 12 people. And so I didn't offer it again for a while. And then I finally convinced the gal who runs the classes there to let me teach an introduction to airbrush class, which is not a finished painting. It's an introduction to the airbrush, the tool, the different kinds of airbrushes, you know, and then all the basics that go into it, you know, dealing with viscosity, dealing with, you know, stencils or shields, and all these different things that you can, tools that you can apply. And you can do three-dimensional stuff too, 3D objects. So we do a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And I have sold out 3 of those classes now.
See, that's a little less scary, you know, because
because you're not having to do a finished work. You just go, oh yeah, I can use the tool. And some people, you know, they start. I teach them how to write I say, write your name. You know how to write your name, and so they'll do that. I had one 11-year-old girl though, in like one of the first classes I taught. Next thing I know, I look over at her desk there, and she's airbrushed in a cat, and she did a pretty good job of her cat. And I told the mom, I said, this gal's a natural. She should take some more classes. So now I'm offering an introduction to watercolor class, because a lot of people, again, are intimidated. You know, so I'm going to go with that, because it's the first time I've taught the class. It's not till the end of the month. It's sold out in 2 days. So the intro classes, I think, are, you know, a winner. I think it's.
Hey, you said you teach a sommelier class too.
Yes, the sommelier. Yeah, that's fun.
But you didn't know how to do that first.
I did not. I went online and watched, I don't know, I watched 4 or 5, 6 videos a day for 2 weeks and practiced and did all the little techniques that they did and whatnot. And I, you know, as a person that is familiar with watercolor, it wasn't a huge stretch, but I did find that I did not want to use the rice paper, because I knew it would be impractical for the classes, because it warps a lot.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Using the great big sheets, and even that'll warp some, but on a smaller sheet, that warps more pronounced. And so I just do it on a regular, you know, watercolor paper. 90-pound cold press seems to be a good compromise. But we still use the sommelier brush, and it's fun. It's good, simple stroke painting, and it's even people who do not know how to draw, again, can do a sommelier, you know, because I just do simple, you know, bamboo. I think the last one I did was just a tree branch coming down, a cherry blossom branch coming down with all the flowers on it. So it's pretty basic, but and you're not painting in whole backgrounds and all that with sommelier. You're boom, one stroke for the branch, you know, maybe another couple strokes for the side branches. Then you're just doing little dabs for the flowers, and you know, and it's how you
practicing controlling your strokes, and you know, and that's a lot for some people, you know, learning how to control the strokes and the you know, that's a lot of work, and you're learning a lot, you're focusing a lot on it. So.
Yeah, but they seem to like that's the sommelier has been good, the airbrush, the oil painting class. The other oil painting class I'm adding in this year is knife painting. how to paint with a palette knife. And we'll just do a mountain, just a mountain with the, some trees and little things. But it's
happy trees.
Yeah, simple things that people can handle without having to be, too afraid of it and all that. And the main thing I try to teach my students is to have fun. Don't compare your work to what I'm doing, and don't compare your work to the person next to you. This is all about you. You don't have to paint it just like me. Paint it your own way. If you want to put in an extra clouds or more branches or more trees or less trees, whatever you want to do, it's your painting. Have fun with it. I'm just here to guide you along to show you what the possibilities are, and you can take it from there. But don't beat yourself up. Do not expect to have a beautifully finished piece when you've never painted anything in your life before.
You want to airbrush a cat? Airbrush a
cat. Right. Exactly. Do what you want to do, because it's all about having fun. And I've only had one person cry.
Oh.
She was all upset because her painting didn't look as good as her friends next to her. And I walked over and looked at her piece, and it was just fine. There was nothing wrong with it. It was not a professional painting, but it was an excellent first try from any student in a painting class. And I took her painting away from her, and I went and I held it up to everybody in the class. And I said, what does everybody in the class think of this? And everybody's, oh, you did good. And everybody was encouraging her, and she stopped crying, and this was a grown woman. This was not a kid. This was a woman that was in her mid-30s, So it was like, I felt so bad for her. At the end of the class, she was still kind of all, shaking and stuff like that. And I told her, I said, look, you did great. When you get home and your husband sees your painting and your kids see your painting, they're going to be so proud of you, because this is the first time you've ever done one. And it looks, couldn't expect more from a first-time student.
Of course not.
As your teacher, I give you an A. I give you an A. You're giving yourself an F. I'm giving you an A. So,
yeah. So I'm sure the first time you went to do the character tour at Universal, you felt like crying. You're like, oh God, this is horrible.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and there's some challenges out there too. I mean, sometimes you get people out there, like we had this grandfather. It wasn't me that was drawing. It was a gal who was new next to me. I'd been there a couple of years at this point. And this gal, she was on like her second week there. And this grandfather and grandson came to sit down. And the grandson was beautiful as a character, tall, skinny, 16-year-old, big bushy hair. He just was a caricature already. You could have just drawn any shape and put the big hair on it, and it would have been that kid,
Yeah.
But grandfather now had a cranial deformity, and he had one eye that was all the way down here. He had one eye that's where your cheek is, and the other one was normal. And the gal next to me said, "Oh my God, what do I do? What do I do?" She whispered, what do I? And I said, draw him like he is. He does not. He knows who he is and what he looks like. Draw him like it is. You don't need to exaggerate it.
Yeah, don't. But don't draw it what it is. Just draw it normal.
Because if you draw him with his eyes straight across, A, it's not going to look like him, and B, that would probably be more offensive to him. Why are you correcting who I am? I mean, I live with the way I look, and I'm fine with it. I sat down in front of you because I'm fine with it, And sure enough, she did that, and he was very happy with it. And when she was ready, walked out, she goes, "I got to go take a break. I was just the trauma of worrying about how he felt about it." And I said, "Melanie, you did fantastic." I said, "Yeah, go take yourself a break." But I mean, he loved it, so you did it. So, but it, I didn't get anything like that thrown at me my first 2 weeks. And
that's hard.
It was challenging, but but after a while, you learn. If a person's a real heavy person, draw them heavy. They don't want you to skinny them down. If they do want you to skinny them down, they'll tell you. They'll tell you, "Oh, can you make me a little thinner?" And then make them a little thinner, But don't make them skinny, because they're not. But you can do it a flattering, with still a little bit heavy,
Mm-hmm.
You don't draw the double chin. You just draw a big round face that goes all the way down to the bottom of the other chin, and then just draw this part up, and then there is no double chin. It's just a big round face with the one chin in there, and you don't draw the other one. This is all just face shape. So there were little tricks you learn how to do there. And just like in all the art that we do, there's little tricks and tips and things like that. That's why I do the forests and trees, because you're just like Bob Ross. You're just tapping, and don't do it too much. Just 2 taps might be too much. Just do 1. Let the brush do what it does. That's the idea. So, and that also helps you paint quicker and more expressively and all. So, we were talking about doing the shows too.
Mm-hmm.
That's well, now you've got your own gallery, of course, but have you
I
done
have my own gallery. Yeah, we've been doing shows, especially since my 20-year-old is just starting out and doing shows. She wants to do more shows too, so I want to do more with her.
Oh,
so
nice.
I've kind of actually upped the amount of shows I'm doing so I can do them with her. So
you try to get tables next to each other?
Yeah, well, she doesn't want to be too close to me. She just she doesn't want to be in mom's shadow.
Yeah, she doesn't want that, No young people want to be around their parents, let's face it.
She doesn't. I was like, she was like, well, I don't want people buying my art because you're my mom. And I was like,
they don't want to be accused of nepotism, right? Yeah.
No, and I'm like, honey, you sell just as good as me when we're next to me, so you're fine. Trust me.
That's my daughter too. While she was growing up, I'm sure your daughter may have been the same. She didn't want me to show her how to do anything, and I did not. I made sure that I didn't do that. I wanted her to draw, and she draws nothing like me. Her artwork looks nothing like me, but she's fantastic. She's really knows how to pay attention to detail. And she feels like she's got that kind of typical anime style. She's a big anime fan, but she doesn't. She's got her own little spin on it, her own little.
Mine too.
So that's, and of course, people from my generation, we all, grew up doing our best not to paint like Frank Frazetta, but, to get away from, I got a really nice Frank Frazetta book for Christmas. Fantastic.
Oh, cool.
That new edition, a big fat one. Oh yeah, I love it. It was I was simultaneously happy that I got it and kind of saying, you guys spent too much money on this, because I don't want people to waste money on me. So
yeah.
But the shows, if people are, we were talking about, we want to encourage the young and aspiring artists out there, and you know who you are out there. We want to teach you.
Looking at you. We know.
Yeah, I'm looking right at you.
Yeah, we're looking at you.
We want to encourage you, not discourage you. Shows are fantastic and fun. Be prepared for a lot of hard work. And don't ever think, I always approach shows as an advertising expense, not as a store exclusively, because, and I'm sure you'll second this, Echo, that I've been to shows where I didn't sell much at the show, but it led to something else, led to other shows, or led to a sale afterwards, sometimes years later.
Yeah, that's really good advice, because even if you have a bad show and you're feeling bad about it, think about it as an advertising expense.
You got all that exposure to all those hundreds of thousands of people. You got new fans. You got exposure to other artists. You got to learn the ins and outs and the ropes of the art show. Like Dragon Con, the first time you do it, it's like, oh my God, there's just so many people and so many things, and just this hustle and bustle, and it's kind of overwhelming and stuff. And then by your third year, you're whistling in, and and you're a lot more relaxed, and it's like being with old friends, because you see people from across the country. They only do Dragon Con. That's the only time you see them.
Yeah,
and it's wonderful. I love the shows. Dragon Con is one I'd like to do again, but that's a lot of work. They stopped doing all that, having to do all that paperwork for the print shop. That was the thing that got me. It was so much work to do and tag every little piece and with a number and the whole deal. And they don't do that anymore. That's a much more streamlined. So it's easier to do than ever,
Yeah, they don't do that anymore. So
Yeah,
no.
yeah. So
So
and the print sales are, and the print shop sales there are good, and it's nice to have that as a third venue. You've got your table, you've got the show display, and then you've got the print shop. And between those three things, you got three avenues to sell.
you ever
But
sit at you ever sit at your booth and have people run up and be like, "Oh, I saw you like 2 years ago, and I've been
yeah,
thinking about your art, and I couldn't remember who you are, and I was hoping I'd see you again, and oh my goodness, I've been thinking about this piece," and they have to like buy a bunch of stuff, but it was
oh
like
yeah.
2 years ago they saw you.
Well, the one I would get over and over was I would get repeatedly when I'd go back to Dragon Con, when I'd get people go, I bought one of your four seasons last year or 2 years ago or whatever, and I've decided I have to have the other three.
Yeah.
And that would happen all the time. That'd be half my sales is
Yep.
people bought one or two of the four seasons and they're going, no, I need all of them. So, yeah, stuff like that. So, but it's never a bad thing. The worst show you have, like I did a show with Stan Morrison and I did a show. We got invited to do it for free. And it was these people that they still run a series of shows where they sell reptiles. It's called Repticon, and they have snakes and lizards, and they sell, and it's all these snake dealers and all that. But they decided to do a sci-fi fantasy show, and it was called Creature Con, and it was at the fairgrounds. Fairgrounds are like the kiss of death, basically. Fairground shows are not usually big sellers, So we were there, and I don't know, over the weekend, I think both of us did like $50 or $100. It didn't cost us anything but gas, but I met a gal named Emily there, and she became one of my models, and she's a dear friend, and I love her to death, and she's an artist in her own right. She does jewelry, and I mean, that's what I got out of that show. 30-year friendship with a fantastic person. So, and I, so you never lose at these, it's never a loss. You got to look at the silver linings. And then of course you don't lose. A lot of times you have a great show. You sell great.
You never know.
Yeah. So, but even the shows that feel the worst to you, they're still worth doing. Absolutely worth doing.
And Athena has a question for you. She wants to know, is the print shop a print-on-demand service at the event? So she wants to know what the print shop is.
Well, it depends which show you're at. Some of them have print-on-demand. I think, is it Gen Con, I think, does that? But
I don't think anymore.
They used to do it as an option. But no, it's usually your print shop. You have a limited amount of space. You can put however many prints you want in there, and then they just sell them for you.
Yeah, usually the print shop is just basically it's like, here's a wall of prints that you could just the artists put the prints in. And
the print on demand thing is pretty more rare than I think. It's not that it's not done, but I just don't see it at a lot of shows. It's usually you come armed with your stuff already. A lot of people would do, they just do a print, and they have like a backing board and like a plastic sleeve, a little clear bags sleeve that they put it in. I'd go to the extra yard. I've matted all my stuff, matted, signed, and numbered, because that's what I do at the outdoor mainstream art shows, the fine art shows. They want limited edition, they want it matted. Don't do colored mats, just do white. If they want to get a colored one, they can throw it on top of the white one, but if the matte, I like this print, but I don't like the matte color. I want black, or don't give them a choice. Just give them white and, or black. Pick one and then just roll with those, because, you just learn how to, or most of the people at the sci-fi cons, they don't mat them at all. They just have them bagged and they print them right to the edge. They don't even have a border or anything. They're usually full bleed, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tad says the Dragon Con has a gallery wall now, but all sales are at the artist table. They don't have a print shop anymore.
No printer. Well, Tad would be the expert on Dragon Con. He's
he's a lifelong member. He is the expert.
He's been doing it before there were automobiles, I think. Yeah, Tad's been doing it a long time. No, yes, Tad is definitely the man who would know. I haven't done it in years. I like Dragon Con a lot. I met so many artists there, and I met a lot of my the people that I never thought I'd meet growing up, like Boris Vallejo and Don Mates and Todd Lockwood and Larry Elmore and all these great fantasy art guys that, that now I can call, them my friends and whatnot. It's, amazing who you get to meet up there at Dragon Con. You really get to meet some amazing artists, Donato, Giancola, and
everybody. Really, Dragon Con's a really good show for that.
Oh, it really is a great place to interface fans and famous artists and whatnot. It's it's really good. I mean, Don Mates is just a wonderful, wonderful person. And one year, for instance, this is what could happen at a show. It was MegaCon here in Orlando. Don Mates and his wife, Janny Wirtz, who's also an excellent artist, novelist. They came up, and I guess there was a bunch of stuff happening in Orlando. So the hotel they had originally booked at bumped them because they were right on International Drive where the show is.
Yeah.
And they bumped them out to the airport. Well, they have this old rickety pickup that they drove up there. And they're like, this thing's on its last legs. Last thing we want to do is drive all the way across Orlando to the other side of town with crazy traffic in this all day. And we were thinking about packing up and leaving. And another artist you may know, Mike Conrad, was having dinner with them, and they were discussing this, how they were probably going to leave. And he says, is there anything that you can do or anything? I said, yeah, I got extra room over here. If they don't mind sleeping in my garage, which is all, it's all insulated and air conditioned. I've got a big old blow up bed. They can come over here and sleep on that if they want to do it, And my wife, is an excellent cook. And so sure enough, they came over and spent 2 nights with me, Don and Janny. And it was so great to really interface with them that way. And he even did a little watercolor for me of Captain Morgan, because that's his, he's the pirate guy. He's the original artist, Captain Morgan. So I have my own Don Mates little watercolor original. And the funny story behind it is my air mattress ended up deflating on them the first night.
Oh, no.
Which we fixed. We figured out that the little cap wasn't on all the way. And so we had it good for the next night. But so it was leaking ever so slightly. So he did me the Captain Morgan, then did a little caption on it, said, "Thanks so much for everything, Paul. You floor me."
Oh,
and Don ever the jokester. But there's a guy that I'd been looking at his artwork since I was a little kid. When I was a teenager, and now here he is.
So you put it on the floor of your garage
and giving me a piece of artwork for free as a thank you, And I never really kind of got to know Janny before that, because she's very businesslike. She's not as easy to converse with as Don, because she's focused, but when she was over here, I was like, this is not the same person that I know from Dragon Con. She's hilarious.
That's amazing.
She's just as chatty as Don is. Well, almost, but I mean, she was great. I really, really got to bond with her, and that was nice, because I'd been seeing her at Dragon Con for years, and I bonded already with, Don, because he's just the most friendly, outgoing guy, but Janny is not that. And, but she is a wonderful, wonderful gal. And I enjoy her artwork and his,
I remember one of the first years that we were at MegaCon, you had an event at your house, and at your studio. We came over and went to that. So
I did that for about 10 years. I called it I skipped 1 year. So I called it the almost annually MegaCon artist dinner. And we have maybe 30, 40 people, and all artists. And my selling point was, when you're done with the show, it's a long day. You're going to be hungry. You're going to be hungry, and you're going to go on to get something to eat. And if you go to anywhere to get something to eat on International Drive, you're going to be waiting 30 minutes, 45 minutes for a table, and then another 30, 45 minutes for your food. So you're going to be waiting minimum an hour before you eat. I said, my house is 10 minutes away, and when you get here, food's ready. It's all ready to go. chow down.
I went a couple of years. It was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, we had a great time. Yeah, we really had a lot of fun. And I still have people that say, "Oh, I miss it." Tad, I invited Tad after a while. It's because he's the big art. He's the person who he's a great patron of the arts. Tad.
Yeah, Tad's on. Tad's okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
I invited him over, and we had some good times. But mostly artists, some art directors from some of the other local shows like Necronomicon and Oasis, some of these smaller cons that were around this area. I'd invite people that were the art show director or whatever. And so we all artists all mingling and rapping with each other, and getting to know each other. And we even had a couple of, like Don came and one year, and then Larry Elmore came the very first year I had it. We only had like 10 people here, and Larry Elmore was the first one to show up.
Cool.
So I was like, yeah, Larry's a great guy. Really, really nice guy.
Yeah.
So, but it's great to meet those kinds of people. And then on the flip side, from the convention thing, that happens. I started doing the conventions because I needed to fill in a gap of about 3 to 4 months or more when it's super hot weather in Florida. That's where I'm based out of.
Yeah.
All the mainstream art shows, the fine art shows, run from maybe the fall till late spring. And then you got the whole summer, the end of spring, all the summer, and the beginning of the fall that there's nothing going on. It's
too hot.
It's way too hot. Whereas the conventions are indoors. So MegaCons during the summer, Dragon Con at the end of the summer, Gen Con, all the little conventions, they're all running in that exact opposite time of year. So that's what kind of did the botanical stuff for the bulk of the year, and then the fantasy oriented stuff for the rest of the year. Now these days, only place I'm left that you can see my artwork is the Portofino Gallery, the Galleria Portofino at Lowe's Portofino Bay Hotel. That's at the Universal Studios here in Orlando. And during the pandemic, they closed down. And then when they reopened, they kind of went more gift shop-ish rather than gallery, but it's kind of both. But I was going to hang my botanicals in there, which I did okay on selling those. But mostly I sold a lot of owls and a lot of stuff that was kind of Harry Potter-ish.
Okay.
And, because they're big on Harry Potter there, And it ended up that when I came back, he was like, yeah, I want all fantasy work now. And that was like music to my ears. What? A gallery and all they want is my fantasy work? Hell yeah.
Okay.
So I've got all mermaids and owls and stuff in there. And then I started painting some castle pieces. Here, I'll grab one real quick.
Okay.
I've got a little castle piece over here. I think I can access it pretty easily. I'm hoping. Let's see. There it is. So this is a new little painting that I did for them. This is the first time anybody's seen this one. It's an exclusive here with Echo.
You sell prints there too, or just?
Yeah, I do. But this is a new little.
Oh, cool! It's a castle. Oh, nice.
Castle. It's kind of Hogwartish. They got a little boats going out towards the castle, kind of like they do at the beginning of Harry Potter. But yeah, just a quickie oil painting, and I'm doing all these out of my head. I've done maybe about 6 or 7 little castle pieces, and that's I really enjoy that. Actually, you can see quite a few of them. I'll go out there to the Portofino Bay. They kind of give me carte blanche over there. I can hang whatever I want.
Wow.
I can go over there and paint out in the piazza. They got this beautiful. It's a simulation of Portofino Bay in Italy. And they've got a piazza out there on the water. And I go out in the piazza there and I paint live and I'll film it. And I'll do just an hour. And you can see a bunch of these on my YouTube channel. You can go watch me do, and they're time lapse. So you don't have to sit there and watch me paint for an hour. They last maybe about a minute, these time lapses. And, but you can see me paint all these different little castles. I haven't hung any of them in there yet. I've been doing them for almost a year now. But I wanted to wait till I had a whole wall's worth before it. I'm just about ready. Probably in the next month, I'm going to go out there and hang 7, 8, 9 of them, and
cool.
And then put some prints out and see what happens there. But yeah, my goal is not so much to sell stuff that much anymore. It's because I'm not really reliant on that anymore. I've paid my house off a number of years ago and paid off all my bills and all that. I was in the military when I was young, so I have VA covering all my medical things, that anything that I need there. So I'm pretty covered. So now I've been able to just, with teaching the art classes and my Social Security and whatnot, I actually have been giving paintings away to friends of mine and whatnot.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, I don't want them to sit in my house. I don't want them to sit here. So somebody goes, ooh, I love that. And it's an old friend of mine. Here you go. And they're like, what? And I'm like, here you go. Let me give you something. No, here you go. What you can give me is hanging on your wall. Now, I know young artists don't have that option. They don't really have that option. I mean, it's really hard, but I'm going to give all those young artists, aspiring artists, a big lesson right now. So if you're on the radio or whatever, listen up to this story. And I'm going to sound like a kind of a pompous, person at first when you hear the first part of the story, but you'll get it after I'm done. While I was out at Universal, we have these great, doing the caricatures, 22 dozen other artists out there, all good artists in their own right. Some of them are some of the best artists I've ever seen. I can't believe they're not displaying more than they are, but they're worn out by the time they're done working there for a week. So, but when we'd have a little slow time and nothing was going on, I'd have in this booth, I've got an artist, sometimes two on either side of me. So we got, 3 to 4 artists in the booth. And so we'd have, we were all just sitting there doing nothing, talking story. And I'll sit out of nowhere. I'd look over at one of the artists and I'd go, hey, am I the best artist here? And they look and they go back and they go like, man, what's with this guy? I mean, geez, who does he think he is? And I'd say, no, right? I said, we're all different. It's apples and oranges. We all have different styles. We all do our own thing. I do oils. You do watercolors. You do, pencil. You do, we all have our own. So I'm not the best artist here. A lot of us are, we're all our own kind of artists and we all are good. We're all good. So, oh, okay. And I go, now, let me ask you another follow-up question. Yeah. I'd say, whose art sells for the most money here? And then they all go, oh, okay. I see where he's going. I'd say me by a long shot. None of you guys touch me on prices. None of you come even close to the prices I charge. None of you are in galleries. Why is that? Because you don't charge enough. You sell yourself cheap. Don't sell your art cheap. Don't do that to yourself. You're better than that. Ask more for your artwork. Even people like Stan Morrison, who we both know, artists, he was doing some illustrations and they were digital and he does them quick. He's lightning fast. Mm-hmm. And I mean, how much are you selling those for? And he's like, oh, they're giving me like $65 a drawing. And I was like, what? I said, you're taking that? I said, Stan, tomorrow, you $200 a drawing at least. At least it should be more, $200, $250. And I said, you've already proven to yourself that you get stuff in on time, and getting it on time is everything to them. First of all, plus you're giving them kick-ass work on time. I said, you tell them to use $200 from now on. And sure enough, a month or two later, I was talking to him. Oh yeah, by the way, I charged them $200 out. They didn't blink an eye. And I said, I knew they wouldn't. Artists always want to sell themselves cheaper, and don't do that. Ask, is a Mark Rothko that looks like a ping pong table, is that really worth, whatever it was, $50 million or whatever it sold for? Granted, he's Mark Rothko, whatever, he's got a name. Come on with that. So you can sell something for 50 million and you're going to ask 65 or you're going to sell to where it barely covers your materials. Don't do that. Hold out, because if it's a good piece, somebody is going to end up buying that'll pay you the money it's worth. And I mean, proof for me is I was running behind on my mortgage. I was behind, pushing at 70, 80 days, 90 days. They start working on foreclosure. So I was teetering at the edge for a while there, right before I went to the caricature booth. And I was really teetering on the edge. And I had a gal who had bought an original mermaid for me years before, paid top dollar for it. I think it was $2,500 or something for 18 by 24. And she'd had a divorce, and her husband, because it was not a nice divorce, he took the painting, even though she wanted the painting. He took the painting in the divorce settlement. So she wanted to get a new painting from me. She ordered a reproduction of the mermaid one that she'd bought, but she wanted one of my original Four Seasons, the original. And I said, and she said, how much is it? And I said, well, it's $25,000. And she was like, whoa, yeah, I don't think I quite got that. And I said, well, you know, she goes, you can't do it for less. She goes, I'll give you 10,000 cash right now. And I needed the money, Echo. I was behind on my $10,000. Wasn't going to finish paying off my mortgage, but it was going to give me a nice long buffer, right?
Yeah.
And I told her, I said, I can't do that. The reason it's 25,000 is because I don't want the set broken up. Now, right. I'll sell you the whole set for 40,000. So you can get it for 10,000, only if you buy the whole set. And she couldn't do that. So I'm like, I can't do it. And I was just, I left out of that place. So we didn't have a deal. I left that conversation, and I was like, oh my God, what am I going to tell Kathy? Of course, I told her nothing. She didn't find out till like number of years ago, but this is, 15 years ago this happened. And I didn't know what to say, but I did end up selling her a full-size reproduction on canvas, hand embellished, for $3,000. So I got $3,000. And eventually, over the years, she bought the other three again, just like so. And coincidentally, the last two she bought was enough to get me over and pay my mortgage off 3 months early.
See?
So it ended up all working out in the end. But boy, I kind of felt like, did I make a bad decision here? I could have.
Hard.
It was the toughest decision I ever made.
Did you ever sell the original Four Seasons?
But I stuck to my guns, and that's what I'm saying. If you stick to them and you're true to yourself, it'll come back in the end to you. It really will. I'm a firm believer in that, especially if you stick with it. Did you ever
sell the original Four Seasons?
I have not. I still have them for $100,000 if somebody wants to buy them. But,
all right.
But I would take, like I said, I would take 40,000. That'd be my minimum, but I'd take 40,000 for them. But the reason is, I know that they're worth it. I'm sorry, but they're worth it. If a Rothko's worth that much, or somebody can sell a banana taped to a canvas for whatever millions of dollars, I'm like, no, I'm not selling them cheap. Why? Because I knew I'd sell the crap out of the reproductions, and I have. And over all the years I've been selling the Four Seasons as limited editions, I've made about just under $40,000 off of the editions I've sold over the years.
Yeah.
So I made my money, and I got to have my cake and eat it too, So, and that's the advantage of having, well, I print my own, so that I have a huge printer over here, just right back here. It's a Epson P9 9600. It's a $5,000 printer, but you make your money back pretty quick off a printer like that if you stay out there.
We have one of those too, so it's awesome.
Yeah, they are awesome, and they really save you. Well, not only do they save you the money, but boy, do they give you the quality control, right?
Yep. I think we got ours because you advised us to, I think. So
probably because it's just such a better way to, I mean, are you going to pay $150 for the reproduction, or are you going to do it yourself for $30?
Yeah. So well, all right. We're just about out of time, but thank you for the awesome advice for everyone to stick to your guns and remember that you are worth it for sure. Do you have anything else? Any last bit of advice for everybody?
Well, my advice, and I think Echo again would agree with me, is the trick to it and to getting better as an artist. Like I said, I'm self-taught. Just keep painting. Bad paintings, good paintings, whatever. Just keep at it and you'll get better. You tend to learn more from your mistakes than your successes. Don't sell yourself. If somebody says, oh, well, you're gonna sell that. You did that one and you usually take 20 hours. You did that one 4 hours. Shouldn't it be less money? And I'm saying, no, actually it should be way more money because magic happened.
Yeah.
Magic happened. And that magic doesn't come out all the time.
It's so 4 hours plus 4 years, you know?
That's right. And it's all that lifetime of, but when the magic happens, you know, that brush is a magical object once you learn, or that pencil, you know, and don't think it isn't, because being creative, even if you're not going at it professionally, being creative is the thing, man. There's plenty of destructive stuff in this world, plenty of negativity and destruction. Be creative, add things and bring joy to people. You know, that's what it's all about. It really is, because you've been given the desire and you develop the skills to be able to give something to somebody that they love and they enjoy. And that's, you know, that's a gift. That's a gift that you shouldn't squander. You know,
absolutely. Well, thank you again, Paul, and thank you to everyone else for
peace and love, everyone.
Peace and love to everyone. And
thanks for having me on your show. I know I chatted the whole time, didn't give you a chance to say much, but
that's why I had you on the show. It's good to hear you again. So
right on. It's great to get hooked back up with you again. I hope we can stay in contact a little bit better. But I follow you on. I follow your show, and you all should too. Follow Echo's show. She's had a great artist on last week, and I'm sure she'll have a great one on next time.
I'd love to have you on again sometime too. So
absolutely.
Great. Bye, everyone.
Peace and love. Happy day.